The college football playoffs are starting in like a few hours, so I want to do a last minute but 100% correct college football bracket with the playoffs this year being their first season, and I'm a huge college football fan. And the first matchup is the easiest to call in the first round, Clemson versus Texas. Clemson has a few bad losses on their resume, and although they were ACC champions, I think SMU also had a questionable loss on their record. So I'm going to go Texas here in a pretty convincing win. I think Clemson puts up a good fight at first, but overall Texas by a few touchdowns. Tennessee versus Ohio State is a tougher one to call, but Tennessee has lost to Arkansas, which is quite a bad loss, and Ohio State has only lost to Penn State and Oregon. So for that reason, because their losses are more impressive, I'll go Ohio State there. SMU versus Penn State. This is one of the easier first round predictions as well. I think Penn State convincingly beats SMU. They did not beat Clemson, obviously, in the ACC championship game. I forget their other bad loss, but Penn State by a lot. Although I'm an ACC guy, I like the ACC truthfully, but that's what's going to happen. Then Notre Dame versus Indiana, another really easier one to call. I mean, it could be a good game because Indiana has only lost to Ohio State, I believe, and they have no other losses. So at the same time, Notre Dame has a Northern Illinois loss, which is really bad, but they haven't lost since, and that was months ago at this point, so it's been a while. So I'm going to go Notre Dame there. Then we have the next round, Texas versus Arizona State. Texas pretty easily. Then we have Ohio State versus Oregon. This is a really, really tough one and probably the matchup of the quarterfinals. Really tough. I'll come back to it because this one's really easy to pick. I think Penn State beats Boise State. Boise State lost to Oregon really close but haven't lost to any other teams. However, I think Penn State has enough to get the victory over them as Boise State has a couple of other close games on their resume, and they haven't really played as strong of a competition in my opinion. So that's why I'm going to go Penn State there. But Gentry is a really good player. It would be exciting for them to win, but that's just what I think is going to happen. Notre Dame versus Georgia. Georgia there by a couple of touchdowns. I think Notre Dame has maybe a tougher game against Indiana. They'll win at the end by a couple of touchdowns, but it'll be closer in the beginning, similar to the one on the top in the first round. But at the end of the day, I think Georgia's going to get it done there. And then the last one, do I believe in the fairy tale of the undefeated season? Oregon hasn't lost, obviously, because that's what undefeated means. But at the end of the day, I think Ohio State is a really good team, so it's going to be a 3-point game, 1-point game even, an overtime one. I mean, circle this on your calendar, 1-1, 4 p.m. It's going to be cinema. I'm going to go Oregon and just buy into the undefeated fantasy season. Ohio State has enough momentum to win the first big game, but runs out of gas when they run into Oregon. Here we are into the semifinals. Texas versus Oregon is going to be a really fun game. A harder one to call, so I'll go down here first. I think Georgia has Notre Dame, which they'll beat by probably 3 touchdowns, and then Penn State, so they'll be able to rest a little bit more of their starters at the end of this game and be fresher for this one. Penn State's going to have to beat SMU, although they'll beat them convincingly. They also have to run past Gentry, who I think is going to be a tough matchup in their own right. So they'll have more tired legs, and I think Georgia, in the end, will have the easiest path to the championship out of probably any team in the first round. This is going to be a really fun game here as well. Do I buy into the undefeated fantasy season, the Cinderella that everyone, hopes can do it? But I don't know. This is the hardest game to call thus far, Texas versus Oregon. Oregon lost by 3 to Washington in the Pac-12 championship last season. Washington lost close in the national championship game, obviously, to Michigan, and Harbaugh's unreal team there. And then they haven't lost since. Oregon smashed Liberty in their Fiesta Bowl game last year as well, so they've literally not lost for a long time. This is a proven team, but at the same time, Texas's only 2 losses are to Georgia, who has only lost to 2 good teams away with Alabama and Ole Miss, who are SEC blue bloods. So do I believe in the SEC, or do I want to bet on a team that's really good? This is really hard, honestly. I think I'm just going to give it to, I think I'm going to be boring and go Texas. It's going to be a rematch yet again, and Georgia goes for 3 in a row. Oh, it's so boring, but it's what I'm going to do. I think Georgia gets it done versus Texas in the national championship game. What are your thoughts on this year's college football playoffs? Where would you change my bracket? I mean, there's a couple of really good matchups here, but I could be wrong. A couple I'm going to circle now. Boise State could beat Penn State, but they're going to get either one of these teams is going to get beat by Georgia, who I'm pretty confident will beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame will beat Indiana. So I'm very confident Georgia's going to come out of this side, but up here is a bit harder with Texas and Oregon, and then Ohio State being a bit of a wild card there as well. So let me know what you think. Comment below if this aged well or didn't age well. Hopefully it does. We'll see. Subscribe to the channel. Check out my other tier lists. Bit of a different type of video today, but I'm a very big sports fan, so I like making videos about sports. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching till this point in the video. I'll see you in the next one.